Hey there, you beautiful humans. Now, listen, let's talk about something that nobody wants to talk about. Yeah, the big exit stage left moment. The day where you're no longer around to talk about, or argue over who gets the last piece of chicken. But what happens then? Who's footing the bill for the funeral, the medical stuff, or that random credit card that you forgot about from your online shopping spree that day? You know, but that's where final expense life insurance swoops in like a smart financial tool with a purpose. But stick with me here because I'm about to break this down quick, sharp, and with just enough heart to make you care. So, what the heck is final expense life insurance? I want you to picture it like a cozy, bite sized whole life policy. It's not some massive, I'm insuring my private jet kind of deal. We're only talking about $5,000 to $50,000 in coverage. Just enough to handle the not so fun stuff like the burial cost, the cremation, or that hospital bill, the one that you didn't see coming. Yeah. But here's the kicker. It's what we call simplified issue. Now that's fancy insurance talk for there's no needles, there's no doctor visits, and there's no awkward stethoscope moments. Basically, you answer a few questions and boom, you're on your way to being a responsible adult. Or, you're at least faking it very well, but, aren't we all? Aren't we all? But, why does this matter? The reason why this matters is because, believe it or not, people, death is expensive. It's like, did I just buy a coffin or did I buy a Tesla type expensive? Funerals, cremations, the cost of transporting your VIP self, right, to your final resting place, all this adds up. And then don't get me started on the leftover medical bills or that credit card that you use to buy those artisan coffee beans. Basically without a plan, your family's left grieving and passing the hat around like it's a bad Kickstarter campaign. But final expense insurance, it's the plan. It says, I got you, fam. So they can focus on remembering you and not, stressing over bills. All right, so listen, let's get real specific here. Now, when I say funeral costs, what am I really talking about? A lot of people think it's just a casket or urn, but it's really so much more than that. You got the professional services from the funeral home, which include things like the embalming, the viewing, and the memorial service. And then you got the burial plot, the headstone, and the opening and closing of the grave. You might have flowers, an obituary, transportation. The list goes on and on, really. But, the average cost can easily hit over $10,000. And that's a number that a grieving family shouldn't have to pull out of thin air. This insurance is designed to be a direct solution for one big problem. All right, so you're probably thinking, all right, okay, look, this makes sense. But what's the catch? The catch is there isn't one. The process is pretty much streamlined for exactly this reason. Now, here's how it works. First, you and I have a quick chat, right? Either by phone or by video, Zoom, Google Meet will figure it out. I'll get to know your situation and I'll answer all your questions. And then we fill out a simple application. We're not digging into your entire medical history. It's usually a few questions just to determine your eligibility, and then that's it. Again, there's no needles, no hours long exams. There's a straightforward process that gets you a plan in place. We get you from thinking about it to it's handled in no time. Really it's about being proactive and taking care of business so that you don't have to worry anymore about it. All right, so let's tackle the stuff you're probably yelling at your screen about right now. All right, question 1. Is this just a regular life insurance policy with extra steps? No. All right, it's much simpler than that. All right, it's much smaller and it's actually much more laser focused. It's covering those ends of life costs. Think of it as life insurance's chill cousin, the one who doesn't need $1 million to make a difference. Question 2. Are my premiums going to skyrocket, like my phone bill does? No, they're locked in. They're level and guaranteed. There's no surprises. All right, question 3. Do I have to get poked or prodded by a doctor? Once again, the good news, there's no medical exam. Just a quick application and you're golden. Well, golden wings to be exact. All right, all pun intended. All pun intended. All right. But here at Golden Wings, Golden Wings Life Insurance Services, we're not just about policies. We're about making sure that your legacy is love. Not a stack of bills. My team and we're here to guide you through this. No pressure, no jargon, just straight talk. It's like having a guardian angel for your family. Just minus the heart and actual wings. But we do help you craft a plan so that when that untimely time does come, everything's handled, and your loved ones, they can pretty much just focus on loving you. Yeah. So pretty much, if you're ready to adult like a pro, if you're really ready to adult like an adult, all right, you can book a free, no obligation chat with us. I promise it's less painful than a root canal, and it's way more rewarding. All right. So call that number, and book me. I'm here to answer all your questions and help you find the right policy. Now, I guess we're at the end, unfortunately, man. But I want you to thanks for hanging out with me. And I want you to remember, just a little plan in the day. It's like pretty much like leaving your family with a giant hug tomorrow. Hug. All right. Now you guys go be awesome. All right. I'm out.